Lucy joined us. Okay. So we're going to start with a little story, which is connected really to last week's Parsha, but connected to this week's Parsha. The end of last week's Parsha is the AKEIDAH, Hashem's commandment, AVROHOM, to sacrifice his son. And because of that, so Sora heard, this is how she died. She heard that her son was almost sacrificed. That's how she passed away from this great shock. Now, just to explain that for a moment, the question is, we're actually told that Sora is superior to AVROHOM in Ruach HaKodesh, in being sensitive to the divine will. In the whole dispute between AVROHOM and Sora over Yishmael, Hashem says the famous words, all that Sora tells you, Sora shema b'kodah, listen to her voice. So the question is, AVROHOM did this b'simcha, and Sora, she dies from it. She's overwhelmed. She cannot apprehend and appreciate this. On the contrary, she's more in tune with Hashem's will and desire, more spiritual. So the Rebbe explains the answer is, that's why. AVROHOM is ready to surrender. Okay, Hashem says to command him. As Nussi was saying last week, what was the big test? It's a big question, but he asks, if God would appear to you and tell you to do something, even God forbid, slaughter one's son, God himself appeared, you wouldn't do it. What's the big greatness of AVROHOM? We're going to get back to our original question in a moment about Sora. What's the greatness of AVROHOM? And moreover, in our history, people gave up their lives, they gave up their children's lives. The famous story of Hannah and her 7 sons. 7 sons were slaughtered before her eyes for their refusal to bow, to pick up the ring at the feet of the Roman general because of the appearance of idolatry. The general says, they're just picking up the ring and they have no intent. Just a display of crushing the Jewish spirit, and they wouldn't do it. And one child after the other, she surrendered. More than AVROHOM, he gave 1, or ready to give 1, and she gave 7. And about in my own family in Russia, not sending your children to school on Shabbos. You're putting yourself in danger. You're putting your daughter in danger, your son. The communists will come and take them away, take you away. So what's the big achievement of AVROHOM? So there's many answers. The basic answer is that he was the first. Once he opened the way for self-sacrifice, but before we even get, I'm sorry, we're asking 2 questions. What he did was done by many others. And the first question was, God told him who wouldn't do it. So the answer to the first question is, and it's connected to the second. There's many answers. One is the interesting answer that everyone said. The Torah says he got up early in the morning, which means he slept the night. Imagine you're told the next morning you're slaughtering your son, and he slept in peace. That's the greatness. Not a whole night agitating and whatever, or spending the last moments in drama with his child that you would expect. But he slept the night, got up early and ran. So it's there that his uniqueness lies. But again, others have done the same. So one of the basic answers is because, we'll get to Sora now, what he's doing now completely destroys everything he stood for in his whole life. He fought against the worship of the sacrifice of children. Hashem promised him, his whole mission is what you started to reveal God in the world, your child will continue it, no children, mission is over. There's not even people there to witness his devotion to God, which was done on the mountain alone. There's nothing achieved. He comes back home, where's your son? I slaughtered him. So this is a sacrifice that runs counter to every single thing he stood for and accomplished his whole life. And that, by the way, explains, Rashi tells us when Hashem told Avram to sacrifice Yitzchak, Kachna, please take him. What's the please? So Hashem was saying to himself, please pass this test, because if you don't, the nations of the world will say all the previous 9 were nothing. So the Rebbe asks, why? 9 out of 10 is 9 out of 10. Even if he fails this test, because it's difficult to sacrifice your child, it doesn't mean that the other sacrifices were nothing. For example, where he was ready to be thrown into a furnace rather than renounce God, which he did before God had even revealed himself to him, which, by the way, you think is far greater. The answer to that is, well, that's me. This is my son. Okay. But still, it is a great achievement. What do you mean that would be nothing? If you don't pass this test of sacrificing Yitzchak or ready to do so, then all the previous ones don't count for anything. Why is that? Answer. Here we can get to the essence of the matter. Because all the previous sacrifices were for a cause. Non-Jews give up their lives for their cause. That's not true self-sacrifice. If you believe you're going to get 72 virgins, or if you believe by giving up your life, you're going to advance everything you fought for till now, the revolution will continue and you're dying in the war. It's not a sacrifice, but not true sacrifice, because your death is meaningful. It's going to promote the cause. Here's the only time where his death is meaningless and undermines everything. The cause, reveal God in the world, the child that will carry the torch. Over. And he's doing the opposite of what he preached to everybody else for decades. That's forbidden to take a human life. And here he's doing the opposite. So he's undermined everything he taught, and there's no future. So therefore Hashem says, please pass this, because if you don't pass this one, they'll say, yeah, he sacrificed his life, big deal. That's not sacrifice. That's he believed in something, and it's worth giving up your life for. I mean, there are many things in life that people do. It's worth giving up your life for. There's a rationale to that. Money. A lot of people do that. They work and work and work and work and then look after themselves because money is more important than their life. That's not sacrifice. So sacrifice is what Avram was asked to do. Now, again, back to Sora. Okay. So back to Sora. So Avram had this great sacrifice. So why? So Sora dies from it. She's overwhelmed by it. She cannot appreciate it. The answer is because Sora is even greater than Avram. Sora is even greater than Avram. Why? Because Sora is the one who implements. This is the woman's role. She's the one that hands-on implements the divine mission to transform the world and make it a home for God. She's the homemaker. She gives birth to the physical child. She brings up the children. The father brings home the wheat, metaphorically, but who makes it bread is her. We mean it spiritually as well. A father can give a general and should a tone, an overarching tone for the home, the direction perhaps, but the actual nitty-gritty of the inculcating Yiddishkeit, faith, emunah, love, joy, the intimacy of childbearing, child upbringing, especially in the early formative years, that's the mother. She implements it. So Avram, God told him, sacrifice your son. Listen to these words. Complete self-sacrifice. What's going to be with the mission? He surrenders. I know the whole purpose is you being revealed on earth. Now, dear God, you're completely neutralizing that. Okay, gives up. So ready to do it. Whatever you say. Sorrow's even deeper. But dear God, I know what you want. You want a dir b'tachtonim. You want a dwelling place in this world. Let me illustrate with another story. The Rebbe Rashab, that's the 5th Rebbe of Lubavitch's birthday was this past Tuesday, I think. Rabbi Shalom Doiber. So the story goes that once at a meeting that the government had called in Russia, and all the great Jewish leaders there, Rabbi Chaim Brisker, who represented the Lithuanian yeshiva world, Misnagdisha world, and Rabbi Rashab represented the Chassidisha world, and there was very serious issues there. The government was going to control the curriculum, the Jewish curriculum. This has been an ongoing struggle ever since the Enlightenment began, that pushed the government to do so. At any rate, there was these meetings, and the Rebbe Rashab fought this vehemently, and with the point of complete self-sacrifice. So one evening in the hotel room, together with Rabbi Chaim Brisker, Rebbe Rashab is sitting and he's crying because at this point they were not successful. And Rabbi Chaim Brisker says, Rebbe, why are you crying? We did everything we could. We did everything we could. And but the Rebbe Rashab answered, yes, but we didn't carry out. We were not successful. So the difference is like the owner of the business or the hired, the paid employee. The paid employee can be very devoted, extremely devoted. If the business, God forbid, the deal fails, or God forbid, worse than that, he'll sleep at night. He's getting his salary, or find another job. But the owner doesn't sleep at night. There's all the reasons in the world. We tried our best, not our fault, but it happened. And so he's inconsolable. So Sora is deeper than Avraham. You accepted the divine will, okay, you surrendered. Surrendered. But Sora says, but there's a divine mission that they wish to God himself wants, and we know that he wants this. What's going to be with the whole purpose? And therefore she could not contain it. That's even deeper. That's even deeper. His purpose, knowing and sensing deeply what his purpose is. What's going to be with his world, with his whole desire for a dwelling place in this world? So it's not her lack of acceptance. On the contrary, deeper than Avraham. He's ready to give it all up. Okay, God said, you're the boss, I surrender to you. She feels the boss's desire. This can't be. What's going to be? Clear. So, a story I wanted to tell you in connection with this. We're talking about earlier we told the story of the Chayei of Lublin. So the end of the AKEIDAH, friends, it's a beautiful story and very, very, very telling. So Hashem sends a malach. Avram is about to shecht his son. And Hashem sends a malach and tells him, don't send forth your hand against the lad. Sure. This story is told with two Gedolei Yisrael. In this version, it's a Abela of Pasville. So he was a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon, a disciple of the Vilna Gaon and a very great Lamdan. And he related to the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, as follows. When they came out against the excommunication, the ban against the Chassidim, the Alter Rebbe number one, and the whole Chassidic movement, who was deemed a kat. Kat means a sect, a cult. So it was the proclamation, excommunication means in this world, the next world is extremely serious. The shchita can't daven in the shul, can't marry their children. The shchita is invalid, everything is valid. Apostates, heresy, cut off. There was more than one such chayrim. We speak about the main one, which came out, and they called me to his room, the Vilna Gaon, I should sign. So he says I was going, but then I stopped and I decided not signing. And I left. They asked me, he's telling, the Babel is saying, so I was asked, why didn't you go? Why didn't you sign? And they made the question stronger. The famous Gemara says, who should you learn Torah from? You should learn Torah only from a teacher who is like a Malach Hashem Tzvakos, an angel of God, of the God of hosts. That's a true master. I mean, it's a teacher. I mean, as your true master, a Rebbe. He says in fact, the Gaon of Vilna was called the Malach. It's called an angel. He sat for 18 or longer hours in his room in study. The man hardly ate, he fasted. He was called the Chassid. They actually called him the pious one. And he was called the Malach, obviously a tzaddik. So they said to him, but the Gaon, they called him the Gaon, that he's initiating this, signing it. So he answered, and he's like a Malach, like an angel of God. So Rabbi said to them, as follows. When the Eibishter told Avram to shech his son, Hashem told him directly. God appeared to Avram and told him, take your son and shech him. But afterwards, at the end, when he told him not to do anything, Hashem sends a malach to teach you. To save a Jew, a malach is enough. To employ an angel. But chas v'sholem to shecht, hear the cherem, I got to hear this from the Eibishter himself. It's true that the Gaon is like a holy angel, but we see from here that's not enough to fix one's, to shecht another yid, which is why he withheld. They say the same story with another one of the Gedolei Misnagdim, who had actually seen the Alter Rebbe. He was present at the great debate in Minsk, which is an incredible story that's got to be told. I mean, it's printed, should be shared, and tried to convince the Gaon against this cherem. He refused, and so this Talmud, out of respect for the Gaon, did not go to the Alter Rebbe, wouldn't go to the Gaon anymore either. I recall his name, Naphtali, Rabbi Naphtali. Just by the way, to add to the story, so the Chassidim were incensed, the leaders of the Chassidim of this cherem, and they wanted to make a counter cherem against the leaders of the Misnagdim, or the ones that signed this. A counter cherem, a counter ban of excommunication. And they came to the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe refused. The Mittel Rebbe, who was the Alter Rebbe's son, was outside the room hearing. He fainted when he heard the discussion. They were very, very upset. The Alter Rebbe's colleagues were very, very upset with the Alter Rebbe. In fact, the Alter Rebbe suffered from it. From one of his children, they told him. He told them, you don't come along with this. They wouldn't do it without his permission. Because he was appointed by the Maggid as the head of Lithuania, Russia, that area. His refusal, so they never did it. But they're very upset with him. And that caused a bit of a schism, he pronounced the word, schism, between the Alter Rebbe and the other great Polish Rebbes, who had traveled very far to the Ozna to get him to convince him, but he refused. And he said, why? He said, it'll be a terrible chilul Hashem, because if the Chassidim, that said they're true tzaddikim, these big Rebbes, great tzaddikim, well, God forbid, put their leaders into cherem, excommunicate them, they'll be cut off from their spiritual source, and they will do terrible things. Terrible things. And he said, Shmatzach, literally renounced the Yiddishkeit, because they'll be cut off from their neshama, from their source. And that'll be a terrible chilul Hashem, that these great Jewish leaders became apostates. They wouldn't do it. But the story we're sharing with you is a beautiful story. The takeaway message. To help another Jew, you don't have to have big signs from heaven. God himself coming, any little sign that comes your way, help. God forbid, to criticize, to be injurious, to hurt another yid, that you got to hear directly from God himself. And if you don't, we should hold back. Final word, friends. So we were saying that Sora was really greater than Avrohom, as the Torah itself says. And her refusal to reconcile, that God forbid, the divine mission should not be realized, is greater than Avroham's surrender. Okay, you're the boss. It's like, Avrohom in that sense is like the paid employee, devoted heart and soul. But the boss wants different. The boss wants different. Or the business fails. The business fails. You'll still. But Sora is deeper. Cannot be. That, by the way, I'm running out of time now, but one of the most difficult stories to understand in the entire Torah is the very first story. It's the story of Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, and how things went south, downhill, like in hours after their birth. Now, I should tell you, I mean, there's a beautiful, you can Google it, a beautiful 10-minute video of Manas Friedman. You should watch this, it'll blow you away. Because the way he teaches that, it's very humorous also. Explaining this in the light of Hasidus. And the bottom line is, Chava understood, not Avraham, not Adam, like Avraham. Chava understood that the whole reason God created the world is not they should remain in paradise, but they have to engage the world and go out there and be mortal and human and bring godliness to the lower state. She understood that this was really part of the plan. This is what God wanted. To eat of that so-called forbidden fruit, the descent, and then the ultimate elevation. To remain in paradise forever is not the objective. She understood that. So really, in the end, she's the great hero. But the way we've read the story for all these years, it's the opposite. So I'll encourage you to listen to Manas's, the way he tells the story, running out of time now too. And that's the point. But it's consistent with Sora. And that's the role of the Jewish woman. Now, in other words, the guy by nature, where's his spiritual moment? When he davens, when he's learning by Fabrengen, we get spiritual by disengaging the world. It's very difficult for the guy to be engaged in the world and be spiritual. It's a famous story of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov often used to show his Talmidim how heaven is looking at what's going on over here. So like, for example, it was once in shul after davening, one Jew screaming at another, "I'll tear you like a herring. I'll tear you." So the Hashem Tov showed, how would he do this? He would have his students stand around in a circle or sit around. He'd put his hand on the shoulder of the one to his right, to his left, that all linked shoulders, and they would see what he saw. They started screaming because they saw the way heaven is seeing this, that the guy is tearing him to pieces. You just said it and thought it. In heaven, you did it. So the story I want to tell you now in our context about the male, the female. So Baal Shem Tov shows them, there was a Yid there. Baal Shem Tov, one of his disciples probably, Streimel, a holy Jew, and it's Shabbos day, and he's about to eat the chont, and he's the Shem Yichud is for the mitzvah to eat. It's a big mitzvah to eat warm food on Shabbos. And he's saying all of this and all excited about to eat the chont. So the Baal Shem Tov showed him in heaven, look at the picture, while he was eating, he saw an ox with a streimel. An ox with a streimel. So they took off their hands, Rebbe, what is this? He said he became so one with the meat, he became the meat, he became the ox. Why? Because that's not blaming him. That's the guy. When we're in the world of ruchnius, we're good. Put us in the world of sensual, physical pleasure, and that should be ruchnius. That's a very big, difficult for the guy, which is why we have to constantly run away from the world, daven, learn, fabreng, because being engaged in the world and connected and transforming it doesn't come easy to us. But for the woman, yes. The woman, just her very nature, the cycle of time, which is the months of the year, is factored into her body. So this is Sora. For the woman, the hands-on, revealing godliness, sensing Hashem in life itself, the birth of the child, preparing the food. She is this constant connection. It's I am Jewish, not I do Jewish. So he does. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But she embodies more I am. So she embodies more the I am of God. Shabbos is the feminine day, the queen, the bride, Shabbos HaMalka. Not about doing, it's about being. It's about knowing Hashem for who he is, not for what he does. That's the 6 days. Wow, creation, fantastic. But who are you? That's Shabbos. So therefore, again, it's Sora. So Avram will surrender. Okay, no, there's no tachtonim, there's no purpose. Whatever, over. It's your business, you're the other boss. But she's rooted in the very I am of a God. No, I want to be revealed here in this world and be part of your life with your body. Sacrificing Yitzchak when it's all over. So she, like Chava, feels the depth of the divine intent. All right, so when Avram comes to bury her, this is what it says in Kabbalah. Avram represents the soul outside the body. Sarah represents the soul in the body. Again, the whole point being to engage and elevate the world. So the pasuk says he came to Hebron and he eulogized. He came to Hebron. What's Hebron? Kiryas Arba. So you guys are in Israel. Ronnie is still there? No. Okay. So Kiryas Arba, the city of the four giants that lived there. But here's the answer in Kabbalah. The soul, Avrohom is the soul. The soul after death comes to weep. It mourns. It mourns its journey while it was in the body. Chevron means chibur, joined. Chaver is a friend because you join with your friend. Chevron is a place where heaven joins earth. Kiryas Arba, the city of the four, the body was joined together, made up of four elements. There's four elements to life: the inanimate, the vegetative, animal life, and human life. The body is made up of all four. And when the body dies, it separates. So Chevron is joined together. Kiryas Arba, the city of the four, is the four elements. Because why? Is the soul eulogizing the body? Because the soul has learned through its sojourn on earth that the whole purpose is not heaven. Avram is happy, ready to surrender to the sacrifice, himself. But no, Sora is here. So the soul mourns and realizes that the whole purpose and the deepest connection to Hashem is only in this world. That's the mourning of the soul. And therefore, deep down, the soul awaits the day when the soul will come back into the body. And the body's rejoined, reconstituted. All the elements come back together. And then the neshama, the soul and the body fuse as one forever. And that's the ultimate revelation of Hashem. So that is the mourning that the neshama has, the realization that the intent has been and always been this world. Okay, my friends. Have a wonderful
Rabbi. Good Shabbos.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Steve, good to see you. Jeremy, Ari.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos.
Today was a few things. We had a few things, right? Okay, we'll stop the recording.